Welcome to Solutions OP Clinical Trials Podcast. My name is Olga and I'm the Managing Director of Solutions OP. We are a small team of experienced professionals working on clinical trials in the United Kingdom. I'll use our podcast to discuss hot topics in clinical trials and provide analysis of the latest trends and challenges in pharma and medical device industries, not just in the UK but globally. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. In regulatory affairs, we always talk about what you should not do because you end up in trouble. And this is what created a bad reputation for the whole regulatory affairs field, that we're some kind of boring killjoys who constantly nag you to do things because of some regulation. The fact is that many of us are very, very funny, but we haven't had the opportunity to show that side. And this is why today I have invited a very special guest, Arvilla Trag, who is an expert in chemistry, manufacturing and controls, also known as CMC, and who has over 30 years experience of getting pharma companies out of the FDA CMC hell. However, instead of telling you what not to do, today we'll tell you what you should do if you really want to piss off your FDA reviewer. If you follow our instructions, we can guarantee you failure with your FDA application. That's something we can guarantee. And in order to do that, Arvilla will put her Dante Alighieri hat and she'll walk us through the 9 circles of the FDA CMC hell. But before we start, I'll ask her first to tell me a few more, to answer a few more questions about her experience, what does she do, and how many people she has rescued from the FDA hell so far.
Well, I have been doing this for 34 years next month. I was a research lab technician, and my salary was funded by a grant. The grant didn't get renewed, and I ended up hearing about a job doing regulatory affairs and quality assurance at a very small vaccine R&D facility. I didn't know what regulatory or quality was, but it involved working with a lab, so I said, okay, maybe I can do it. So I applied for the job, and I got the job because I didn't know anything and they could pay me less. So I was there about 6 months, and I realized I love what I'm doing here. I love it. And so I have stayed with regulatory and compliance ever since then. It has just been, if you're going to work, you might as well enjoy what you're doing. Because one of the circles of regular hell is getting up in the morning and going to work with, oh my God, I don't want to go there. So
True.
I love writing CMC sections for BLAs. I love writing briefing books for FDA meetings. I love doing that kind of stuff. I've done over 275 compliance audits in my life, and I have done enough of them. Thank you. So that's about it. I've run into I've had some people say some indescribably bizarre things to me, like, well, as long as the process keeps working, it'll be fine. And yeah, okay, that's not something I want you to say to FDA, really. But yeah, so I've got some sort, depending on your perspective, funny stories, and some just plain scary stories, because these people are out there, and I do mean out there. And so I'd be happy to answer Olga's questions.
Thank you so much, Arvilla. That's great. You had too many audits. I have to say that's quite too much for everyone's standards.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's go to the different circles of the hell and see what's going on in the purgatory, what's happening in each one of them, if you want to just walk us through and give us some examples and whatever you would like to add on that.
Well, purgatory is kind of the clearinghouse for people on their way further down. And right now it's in conflict because it is so crowded. There are some who want to make it into a great big housing development. Of course, there's always somebody that wants to make a housing development no matter where you are. Those who opposed the housing development insist it would only create a 10th circle of hell, and they've got quite enough, thank you. Then there's a third faction that would like to see a 10th circle of hell, but cannot agree on where it should be placed amongst the other circles. The logistics of building a housing development or a 10th circle of hell in hell are challenging too, because most of the contractors in hell are down in the 8th circle, because that's where the fraud goes. And the paperwork to get a temporary transfer to another circle to do any construction takes eternity, and there you go. And it's been over 2,000 years since there was a carpenter in purgatory. So
it's a tough job.
That's what's going on in purgatory. Now, my first client had me navigating the 7th circle of hell, which is failure to follow FDA advice. He was extracting a specific protein from elective reduction mammoplasty in a warehouse he had rented with no aseptic controls whatsoever, and sending it to stage 4 breast cancer patients to put in their refrigerators next to the gray poupon and self-inject intravenously in their homes. All of this was being done without the benefit of an IND, no clinical protocol, no monitoring, no physician supervision. Okay? And this is why the term snake oil was invented. Long story short, a very infamous female politician with the initials HC interceded on my client's behalf when the FDA was going to send him to prison, and he was not prosecuted but had to comply with some very strict conditions established by FDA. One of those was that he could not enroll any more patients, and that a monthly report on the status of the patients had to be submitted to FDA, but he couldn't do it. They didn't trust him, so they said, you got to get a consultant. So I was the consultant. Now, at the time, he had 24 women injecting themselves with this stuff, which was going out with like 9.5 EUs per ml of endotoxin and such. I quit working for him when I discovered that he was not reporting patient deaths to me. He had been enrolling people without telling me, and I was sending reports to FDA saying everything is like this when it was actually like that. So my signature's on it, and I told him, I said, you're not paying me enough to go to prison for you. I wasn't particularly interested in being in the 7th or 8th circle. So he's going to end up eventually in either the 7th or 8th circle of hell, but right now he's a regulatory consultant in northern Michigan.
Wow. I'm impressed. Yeah. I'm really impressed.
You're impressed. I'm scared. Now, although I would not want to live there, the 8th circle fascinates me because of the fraud. When FDA negotiated subletting portions of each circle to be specific for their punishment, and you should see that contract, it goes on for 2,000 pages, and they did this in 2021, they also created an area in each circle where you can observe what is going on in the rest of the neighborhood, so to speak. The 8th circle was originally intended for fraud, specifically for malicious deception. And this circle is divided into 10 ditches or bulges for pimps, flatterers, simoniacs, which are people that sell or trade ecclesiastical favors, corrupt politicians, hypocrites, thieves, evil counselors, sowers of discord, and falsifiers, basically Washington, D.C. Hell is filling up so fast these days that some of the most egregious sinners already have a reserved spot, even though they're not dead yet, with in the designated circle with a sign that says reserved for, and they're going to eventually end up in that spot. It's, kind of like reserving a table at a restaurant, except not so much fun. Reading these reserved for signs is very informative. Now, I can't mention any specific names due to my 3-way CDA agreement with Hell and FDA, but I can tell you that right now the current manager of FDA Hell is Joseph Mengele, and the next one is going to have the initials JF. Or no, I'm sorry, AF. AF and was very prominent during the pandemic, or if one chooses to believe that. Now, the best way to piss off FDA, it's a tough one because there's so many ways to do it. It's hard to choose which is the best way. I think it would partially depend on your product and your history with FDA. If you have a history of, let's say, making claims that are not necessarily accurate, like telling FDA in March that by September you were going to file your BLA, when the reality was that as you spoke, tech transfer was going on, going from one CMO to another, and there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell, you should forgive the expression, of actually getting to PPQ in 6 months. When FDA is told that you're going to file at a certain time, they reserve resources so that it can be done in a timely manner. So 2.5 years later, when this same client wrote to FDA and asked for a pre-BLA meeting, the FDA responded, and this proves that FDA has a sense of humor. The FDA responded by saying, in March of 2017, you told us you were going to file your BLA in the fourth quarter of that year. Considering the amount of time since then, we can only assume that your PPQ batches have matured. And I don't think I've ever laughed so hard about anything I read from FDA. I don't laugh at a lot of stuff from FDA.
It's good that they haven't lost their sense of humor waiting.
That's the only time I've ever seen it demonstrated, really. Then there's the trifecta, where if you can do 3 things that merit 3 different circles, can't be 3 things for the same circle. It's got to be 3 things for 3 different circles. You hit the trifecta, and that pisses off FDA. So, for instance, bloviating, dead end, or loop hyperlinks and poor graphics would combine circles 1, 3, and 4. There's a trifecta. But if you just don't want to bother going to the effort of getting getting 3 circles in, the best way, absolute best way you can piss off FDA is go to them and ask them for advice, listen to their advice, and then ignore it and go back and tell them it didn't work.
That's a brilliant one.
That will piss them off. Because FDA does not give advice lightly. So when they do, they expect you to listen to it. And some people do, and some people don't.
Yeah, they just try to see what's happened if they don't listen. I think sometimes people just want to be risk takers. They want to do it themselves and see what happens.
A lot of people genuinely don't believe the power that FDA has over drug developers. As far as, you want a meeting with us? We've got an opening in 3 years. No, actually, they're required to grant meetings within a certain window of time after you requested. But, there are certain people you should never piss off. Your hairdresser, your dentist, your gynecologist, your mother-in-law, there was a 5th one there. I'm trying to remember what it is. It'll come to me. But one of the groups of people that you shouldn't piss off would be FDA. It's a win-lose situation. They'll win, you'll lose. It's their ball, you play by their rules. What else can I tell you? What else would you like to ask about Helen?
Tell me a bit more
very warm.
about the writing style. How would you prefer people to write their section and all their information?
Oh my God, I just did an 8-hour workshop on that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah. And at my ripe old age, being awake for 8 consecutive hours was no small trick. Write for your audience. Don't write like you're writing a journal article. Don't write like you're writing a children's bedtime story. And I've seen people draft documents in both ways. Write for your audience with understanding that FDA does not need to have certain things explained to them, and they do need to have other things explained. When you put together a glossary and you list all your acronyms, do not include FDA, USA, CMC, things like that, because FDA knows what FDA stands for.
Yeah. Well, you hope.
When you are writing, make sure that you're not making any claims. Make sure you're not bloviating, which is basically BSing. And write in chronological order. Don't say something like, well, before we did this, we did that. No, just write it, first we did this, second we did that, third we did this. Do it in sequence. And when you are putting a submission together, make sure that there are no dead ends or loops in your hyperlinks, that they actually go to where you say they're going to go to. And do not attach the guidance documents because they have them.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, really. I have seen people that they cited the guidance document, so they were going to attach it just so FDA would know. And I said, you really don't need to do that now.
And how about the resources? What do you have any recommendations of the resources?
For writing?
For writing, yeah.
Well, aside from the fact that everyone should hire me because I am really good at what I do.
Exactly,
and,
that's the main one.
It beats the hell out of doing audits. You need somebody that knows Module 3 in and out. Unfortunately, ICH is revising it, so it's coming out more like Frankenstein's module than anything else. I'm serious. They discuss working cell bank way before they even get to master cell bank. Talk about not being in chronological order. They have analytical methods described in one section, and way the hell in another section, they've got the validation of the analytical methods. Nothing in the controls section is together anymore. The specifications and justification and so on, they're spread throughout. And this is because you cannot take a 26-person committee and put them in a room with 100 typewriters and get the same good results you get with 100 chimpanzees. So everybody had to put their 2 cents into this revision of M4Q, and it's a train wreck. All they had to do was add some sections to the existing module, and it would have been much clearer and made sense. There is no logic behind the M4Q revision. None. It's only logical if you are someone on a committee that has never actually prepared a Module 3. Then it sounds like, oh, we should put this here and put that there. So, these kinds of experiments are grouped together. No, sweetheart, you do not do that. You do not put your analytical validation separate from your analytical methods and justification of specifications. And hyperlinks are great. I love them. But people should not have to bounce back and forth all over a freaking document that can be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages just to find out what's going on with an analytical method or how you got your working cell bank into being to begin with, because you can't describe the master cell bank before you do the working cell bank in this format. It's just stupid. Which I very diplomatically told them.
And tell me, why it's in the 9th circle that to miss a required section? Why it's so special?
Why? Because the FDA electronic gateway to submit is set up to scan, to look for the different sections. Because when you submit your BLA, you're going to be submitting a non-clinical section, a clinical section, a manufacturing section. You're going to be submitting attachments and appendices, and then you've got your Module 2 sections and Module 1. So it's looking for this sequence of numbers, and they have to all be there, because otherwise it's going to reject it because you haven't submitted a complete submission. Should you move things around or leave one out, let's say skip 3.6, S3.6, and go directly to from 5 to 7, basically what happens is computer apoplexy, and FDA gets really pissed because you've screwed up the system, and now they've got to get their IT people in there. Now, I don't know if that's actually true about bringing in the IT people, but it's a really... They've put together the Module 3 for a reason, the way they put it together. Now, considering that before the ICH Module 3 guidance, the only guidance that people in the United States had for writing a marketing application or an IND was 7 paragraphs in 21 CFR 314. 7 paragraphs to tell you how to write all this. So now I think the current guidance on Module 3 is 24 or 26 pages, and the new one is almost double that. So, but they've included, there are so many sections they put in there that say, well, if applicable, optional. I mean, you could just put a list of things that are, if applicable and optional, separate from that, so that it was a little bit easier to read through.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So the people in that committee are definitely going to one of the circles of hell. I haven't quite figured out for sure where they're going to go. Bloviating is always popular. Probably. Oh yeah, definitely the 8th circle. Renumbering and reordering sections of the CTD. Yeah, that's
a
where
good
they're
one.
going. Oh yeah.
That's a good one. So, which is your favorite circle of hell? Or maybe you have more than one that you prefer.
I kind of like the 8th circle because it's interesting to get on the. They've got a viewing deck, and you can sit up there and look at what's going on and who's getting what. And believe me, the 8th circle is no place to go. It's pretty uncomfortable. But the 9th circle, the frozen lake, where that is for omission of a required section, you can be frozen in the lake up to your neck, or you can be frozen in the lake up to your ankles, except your ankles are what's sticking out. Or you can be completely under the ice. It depends on how many sections you left out. So, yeah, that's pretty ugly. And Purgatory's always interesting because it's nice to listen to all these people say, "Why didn't I listen to my consultant?" Okay? All right. Why didn't you listen to your consultant?
We will never know that. That's the $1 billion dollars question. We'll never know that. And what is the one thing that people should do if they really want to piss off their FDA reviewers? Your special recommendation for that?
Special recommendation? I was given a process development report one time that was 300 and some pages long. And in this process development report, there were 35 pages about the history of bioreactors, 42 pages about the history of impellers. And when I went through it and highlighted what was pertinent to process development, there was 11 pages of actual information. So submit that to FDA as an example of your process development and sit down and just wait for the grenade that you just shoved up your nether regions to go off.
That's a really good one.
And that actually happened. I had a colleague and I were working on this project, and we would talk every afternoon after we got done with the regular work. I said, can you believe this? No. What did you have in your documents? Oh my God, you didn't. Really? It was insane. And this guy is as bad as me because we're in a race to screw up retiring. We both want to retire, but we both can't seem to say no when somebody brings us a juicy project. So, and that is precisely why instead of starting tomato seedlings in 2 weeks, I'm going to China.
Oh gosh. That sounds fun.
Not so much. When you get to be my age, even flying business class is miserable. I got flat spots in places that I didn't used to have places. And it's 16 hours to go from Dallas-Fort Worth to Shanghai. That's a long time in an airplane. That's a long time. I bring my reading, I bring my knitting, because time for leisure reading is a humongous luxury for me. And I bring my knitting, which right after 9/11, they wouldn't allow knitting needles on an airplane, till they realized that depriving a bunch of little old ladies their knitting was more likely to create plane crashes than a bunch of terrorists. One thing you never mess with is a knitter's knitting. You just don't. I mean, it'd be like messing with Bobby Flea's knives. You just don't. So, where the hell was I going with this?
How you had to travel? Yeah, you're going to travel to China to have some more fun with some fun project that's coming.
Yeah, well, I'm 71 right now, so I just turned 71 a couple days ago, and I'm telling you, when I was in my 50s, even my 60s, I could do this kind of travel, and it didn't affect me like this. But now I have to leave so that I'm 2 days on the ground before I work in order to get my internal clock reset, and it runs on a 24-hour military time. The rest of the world is on the 12-hour stuff, and we're all screwed up. Plus, China has a single time zone.
Yeah.
From as big as that country is, it's humongous. They have one time zone from border to border, east to west. So at 12 noon, the sun is just coming up on the western border of China. Seriously. I have no idea how. I mean, clocks at least are an artificial construct. I usually just get up with the sun, except in the dead of winter when I have to be. It doesn't get light here till about 8 o'clock, 8:30. Mm-hmm. So I have to be up before then. I'm usually up at 5 in the morning. But I don't understand. I don't understand why they don't have time zones, and I don't understand why the airline that I typically fly to China doesn't have some real padding in their business class seats, because they are as hard as a damned board.
And I hope that at least they have their documents translated into English, so you have something to review, because otherwise you have to polish your Chinese.
Well, there's translated, and there's translated correctly. The company's policy is to have the SMEs that write the procedures do the translating, but they don't bother to find out if the SMEs have good English or if they're desperately struggling to figure out how to say anything in English. And I mean, their SMEs are very good people. They know their stuff, but not all of them know English.
Yeah.
Now, no matter what happens, their English will always be better than my Mandarin, because I don't speak. I can say thank you. That's it. Because I'm a polite person. No matter what, I learn the words for thank you. But you can't necessarily rely on the translations. I was talking to a colleague last night that's working with another Chinese company, and one of the translations because they put the Mandarin and then the English, and the Mandarin and the English, and the Mandarin and the English. Well, one of the translations didn't look quite kosher. So the guy called a friend of his that worked at one of the company's China offices and asked him to look at it. And the SOP was about human resources in Chinese, but in English they had translated it to be about a laboratory practice. Now, if FDA sends in a Mandarin fluent inspector to that facility and sees the discrepancy between the Mandarin and the English, there will be people being pickled and fried.
And they'll question everything else, because once they discover something, they'll pick up on the whole application and everything else, because they expect that you provide them adequate translation, and things like that are actually very common with Chinese companies who try to submit applications to US and other English-speaking countries. If you don't have a proper translation, that could be a real deal breaker.
Well, this is why FDA is required that you have, if a document is originally in a foreign language, that it be translated by a certified translator. Because just having somebody in the lab that says, yeah, I took 2 years of English in high school, do the translation. I mean, I took 5 years of French in high school, and I speak enough French that I'm very comfortable in France as far as asking, for directions, and I actually was able to drop ship a gift to my father from a little shop in Dijon. My father at the time was smoking pipes, and they had a pipe ashtray, which is very different from a regular ashtray, and he'd been looking for one for a few years, so I was able to get it drop shipped to my father without saying a word of English, because the proprietor didn't speak English. But I would never consider writing a submission to any regulatory agency in French, because I don't speak technical French.
Yeah, it's completely different. It's like a completely different language. Yeah, exactly.
It is. It's just like writing for journals and writing for regulatory submissions is like writing two different languages. Because one of the things that drives me nuts about journals is they will have paragraphs that take up a whole page. No more than 20% of the page. If you keep writing a paragraph like that, nobody can keep track of where they are in the paragraph. And it breaks all the rules of proper English grammar and style that you were taught in 8th grade. Thank you, Mrs. Chapin. And it's just, you're not making life easy for your readers.
Yeah.
Whereas I insist that things be grammatically correct as well as technically correct. Because if you make it easy for your reviewer, the reviewer is happy. And a happy reviewer is a positive reviewer. And a positive reviewer is less likely to beat the living crap out of you for the mistakes you did make.
Yeah. And I think that's a very, very good final one, Arvilla. So what I can say in conclusion, first, thank you so much. I'm just going to do a quick summary, and I'll say, if you really want to piss off your reviewer first, as we said, make sure you miss the required section. That would be a brilliant one. Write some word salad so no one knows what you're talking about. Put some history of manufacturing, that kind of things. Will be very exciting for the FDA reviewers because they haven't read them for a while. Just don't use any resources and stuff. Don't put any links, or make sure your links go to nowhere. I think that's a brilliant one. You click on a link and it goes to some blank page. It's so exciting,
Or to an adult website.
Make sure you put a really bad graphs, maybe of your cats or dog, something exciting for them to see. If you have tables from a company that's developed a product in China, make sure it's in Chinese, because they can spend some time translating them. After all, they have plenty of free time. And don't forget, if they give you scientific advice, just ignore it. You know better than them. Just ignore it. Why would you listen? You're an independent person. I think that's the best way to conclude our recommendation of how to fail your application. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed our recommendations.